Camera's hot, launch it.
Okay.
Oh, we're actually going to conduct this interview twice.
Right.
Same interview. Janet's going to ask the questions the first time, I'm going to ask them the second time.
It's short, but we get a little, well, then we'll take the best of what we have and a little different emphasis from one to two. So,
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Launch it.
So, James, for the front of the tape, would you tell us your name and your occupation?
James Chen, and I'm a commercial photographer.
Mm-hmm. And thinking back to 1969, how old were you, and what was your occupation at the time?
Probably around 21, 22. And I was already a commercial photographer back then.
Mm-hmm. Since I won't be in the frame and in the interview,
Mm-hmm.
try to answer it with a sentence that contains the
question.
question. In 1969, I was 21 years old. Okay, so let's do that one again. In 1969, how old were you and what were you doing?
Well, in '69, if I'm doing my math correctly, I was probably around 21, 22.
And what were you doing?
Oh, I was a commercial photographer already.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what you were doing, where you were when you first heard about the Santa Barbara oil spill?
I was in the studio in Santa Barbara, and a friend of mine called, a fellow photographer, and said, hey, you want to chip in and charter a plane and go up and do some photos of a oil spill? So I decided, sure, we'll go up there. We'll do that. My thought was, here he goes again. He's going to have me pay for half of this event, and that's how it got started.
And what happened in the next few days?
Well, the event during that, the photographing on the first day didn't seem like it was a big event. We just didn't have any idea, any clue over that. But we did get some dramatic photos. And then as it went on into day 2, day 3, we realized it was, gosh, not going to end. Not in the near future. So we started photographing some things in the afternoons when we had time to go out and just do our own little photos. And then eventually, about the 4th, 5th day, we heard that Union Oil was looking for photographers to work for them to photograph the aftermath and the cleanup efforts and so on. So we signed up for that.
How did you feel about what was going on?
Well, it was very shocking because we always went out to the waterfront by the pier at dusk. We used to take walks, and we realized that was going to change for the short period. It was very, very messy. We could see all the oil coming up onto the shore, and it was eerie, and it was eerie in a sense that it was very quiet, except for the sound of the wave, just the glub kind of sound of the oil making a wave coming into the shore, and seeing all the birds that were affected by the oil. It was very depressing. It was very unreal, and it smelled bad. So that was a big change.
In the Were you involved, how long, for what period of time were you involved with the photography for the oil companies?
I think they wanted us for about 2 or 3 weeks, but after the first 7 or 8 days, I had enough of it. It was first off, it was very monotonous work. It was same kind of coverage from the Carpinteria area to our to Santa Barbara, and we were able to choose wherever we wanted to go that particular day. But we were asked to photograph mostly the ocean front and the activities. So we would look for bird rescues or cleanups so that there was at least something to photograph. And it got, after the first 5 or 6 days, it was very monotonous in a lot of ways, but we realized that now there's nothing anybody can do but clean it all up. And it just wasn't exciting to photograph that any longer. We thought we got everything we wanted, or I did. So I pulled out after the first 5 or 6 days.
Mm-hmm. And how did you feel about it at that point? Did your mood change at all, or was it? This went on, the spill itself, or the oil went on for a long time. How did your emotions evolve over the time?
It was depressing in that I traveled a lot then. I worked with clients in the LA area and also overseas. And most everyone knew about it. And I was used to being able to brag about how beautiful it was in town and the weather, etc. But now they were always asking about the oil. How is it? Is it clean yet? Etc. And it wasn't. So it was the first time after being here for about 10 years or so, 9 years or so, that it wasn't the same questions about how beautiful the place was. It was, how are you guys dealing with it? Is it really bad? Are we seeing what's real on the news? And so it changed the way we kind of perceived our hometown to be, and that was sad.
Did you become involved in any activism in the period after that?
Not in an overt way, but obviously we felt that kind of disaster shouldn't occur again. I do remember being part of some of the early demonstrations, walking up and down. I didn't really have a placard or anything, but I guess we joined in. It's part of our solidarity in being locals. But no, I didn't join in specifically. I did keep track of the individuals that were in their process of becoming leaders in our environmental community. I know some of them still, but no, I stayed within what I did as a photographer, and I thought that would be a better way to express myself with it.
And how would you say in a concise statement that the 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill affected your life?
This oil spill affected my life during that period. But I think soon after, when it felt like the remnants of all that oil was gone, it didn't affect me. Not in a day-to-day sense, but it did make me more aware of what kind of possibilities were there if we had things that might create another possible disaster. So we were more aware of that, obviously, and then we started seeing more oil wells out there in the shoreline, and of course that was quite sad. And we used to hear people say, it's actually kind of pretty, it looks so Christmassy, etc. And I would try and look at it at night and think about it, but then it would always lead back to that smell and that sound, you know, and the birds and so on. And I realized that obviously it's not a good thing. So it's affected me in a way where it's not just the oil, but to be in Santa Barbara and enjoy the clean views, the weather, and the clean air really made it so that it was difficult to go to other countries, and made it so that we were actually more pampered. We felt more pampered being from Santa Barbara, and less able to maintain, you know, our tolerance in third world type situations. That's how it affected me.
I really like that, you know, statement. Let's run through it again so it's tighter. So how did the 1969 oil spill affect your life?
The '69 oil spill affected my life in a way that made me less tolerant of situations where our air was. I'm sorry,
It's
I can't.
okay.
Yeah.
Just take it from the
time.
top,
Yeah.
ask the question.
Yeah.
Just think it through for just a second.
Well, the '69 oil spill made me realize that I was less tolerant now of environmental mishaps where we suffered less clean air and the potential of having those kinds of events occur in our community. It also made me realize that I was less tolerant of being in other countries where it was difficult to actually enjoy clean air and be able to feel the, what do I call it? It's hard. Feel the it's not the obligation. I have a word that I can't get out. I'm sorry.
Responsibility?
Yeah, no, it's
Kind of like an indebtedness?
where we it's the feeling of being entitled to that.
Oh, yeah, and yeah, entitlement.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
um,
so when I travel overseas and I encountered locations where the air was not good or the lot of diesel in the air or things that were not under control, I felt that my entitlement was being encroached upon, because in Santa Barbara we actually worked harder after the oil spill to maintain all of the things that we take for granted.
let's say that again with maybe like my rights as a human being to clean air and clean water, because entitlement has a negative connotation that, you know, that maybe a person isn't entitled to those things that they think they are, but they might not be. But,
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I mean, it's you know, we once you're in an area that protects you from these natural disasters, or not natural, but man-made disasters, when your clean air is taken away, or your your clean ocean is taken away, you feel that that is your entitlement. You are entitled to have those kinds of surroundings, clean nature. But when you're in other countries that may not have that enlightenment, it's yeah, I just can't put it together clearly.
Well, no, it's
the way I'm
coming
thinking
along,
about
and it's important because this is not something that anyone else has said to us, that it affects your relationship with other countries, and probably other parts of the United States as well. You have an insight into what you've done. You've experienced what has happened here, and you see other places differently as a result, that they haven't done their homework, so to speak, or they haven't.
Let it go for now, and let's come back to it the second.
Yeah, thanks.
And, okay, so a couple of questions. Let's say if you were speaking to a group of high school or college students today, what would be your advice to them about how to protect the coastline?
My advice to young students or younger individuals in terms of protecting our coastline would be not to take things for granted. That voicing your desire to maintain or to see that oceans and air are thought of, taken care of, or to volunteer and step up to be the person who is leading others in terms of thinking about just our natural environment is important. I know that it's just easier to think that, well, somebody else is going to take care of it. But quite often they're not led by the same kind of motives that we have. So it is important to just go ahead and voice it and to be involved.
If the president or the governor asked you to participate in a high-level commission on how to protect the coast, what would what might be one or two of your top recommendations?
Well, my recommendation to protect our coastline would be to first make sure that the heavy ocean commercial shipping has a tighter regulation on their travel speeds, their emissions, and what they are allowed to do in our channels. We have a lot of marine life out there that really needs the protection of at least sane seamanship by those commercial concerns. And I see that those are the immediate areas that would affect our quality of life. In terms of the continued oil exploration, I think it may be inevitable that they're going to try and get the last bit of oil out of wherever they think they can, but they need to make sure that safety and the methods are well thought out so that both sides can enjoy peaceful coexistence. I know that commercial businesses, I don't know if they rely on it, but they have to have new sources. And as citizens of our area that might have that oil available, we have to make sure that there's good dialogue to maintain a safe method of extracting and transporting and so on.
Very good. I really appreciate your comment about the freighters, because that's an important point that, again, that no one else has brought up. And I know from the last documentary I did, the number of freighters that go
It's
through
heavy
here is
traffic, yeah.
unbelievable. And if we had the muscle, I mean, if we exerted ourselves as citizens, we could get them to go around the Channel Islands instead of in front of them.
That's right. She should be able to go around the outside of it.
And there are a lot of marine mammals, whales and stuff that
One little addition.
fight the dust.
See that green frame right there?
Uh-huh.
That keeps, that's the area of focus right now. If he should move out of it, just touch his face again, okay? So if he should move over here, not that he will, we'll try and limit that, but see how it goes out? So we want to keep it right there. Right on
Oh,
his-
okay.
Right on his nose.
So that from the screen it knows to focus where you
It
where
does,
you
isn't that
touch?
amazing?
Yeah, it is.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's good. Ready? James, what is your name, your full name, your occupation, and what, if any, environmental organizations are you part of?
My name is James Chen. I'm a commercial photographer. I'm not involved with any environmental organization except as a supporter. Our local CEC is one of the organizations that I'm in. I'm not as fully involved as I should be, but is one that I'm partial to.
Well, you're as involved as showing an interest in making this DVD, so we're grateful for that. Thinking back to 1969, how old were you, and what was your primary occupation at the time?
Back in '69, I believe I was about 21 years old, and I was practicing as a commercial photographer then.
And how did you become involved with the Santa Barbara blowout in 1969?
The day of the blowout, a friend and a fellow photographer called and asked me if I was interested in chartering a small Cessna to photograph above the oil well, the platform itself. So we went to the airport, got on that little thing, and when we reached the coastline where the Union 76 platform was, I was surprised to see the amount of oil that was coming up. It was a very clear day that day, and I recall that was my impression, but I didn't think much of it. I thought, well, it's just another little industrial mishap. I had no idea what it was going to end up to be.
And then as you became, how did you become more intimately involved in documenting?
I got more involved on a day-to-day basis because we weren't able to do what we were so accustomed to doing, which was to take a nice walk at the end of the day on the beach, or to go out to the breakwater and look at the waves and the boats and so on. It affected us because the smell was bad. There were a lot of activity, a lot of industrial activity, cleanup crews and so on. So it changed us. The town changed quite a bit.
Mhm. And how did you become involved with the Union Oil Company?
There was a call to recruit as many photographers. I think they wanted somewhere around 10 to 15 photographers to do a continuous documentation of the cleanup efforts and the bird, the wildlife, I guess they were the cleanups and saving of the wildlife. So I signed up with the folks at Union Oil for that.
And how did you keep busy once you had signed up with them?
Our assignment was to cover any activity related to the oil from Carpinteria to Santa Barbara. And our requirement was also to photograph, or at least to produce 20 rolls of 36 exposure film a day. So we went up and down looking for events that would not just be scenic, but efforts to clean the grebes and some of the other birds out. affected by the oil. We saw a lot of, or whenever we saw a lot of the chemicals being used to absorb the oil, it always had some activity, and the powder of the material would lend itself to being photographed when it was backlit, and it was dramatic. And those were the only moments that we were able to at least throw in some creativity to getting things that looked good with the light that was available. So that's how we tried to spend each day.
How, of all the images you shot over that period of time, which one sticks in your memory the most? Which image of those hundreds of rolls of 36 exposure Kodachrome really sticks in your mind that brings back all those memories of the spill?
Well, there were several, photographically there were the ones showing the large amount of chemicals that were necessary to, they were orangish color, and I remember the amount of them stacked up by the breakwater area and the marina, and the people in their black boots and uniforms that were soiled with oil, and those were dramatic for me. The other memory I have is really not on film. It's the sound and the smell of the wave of oil that was coming into our harbor. That was the most memorable. You couldn't see any water. It was just blobs of waves of oil just